Well, there's a great story too, and I'm sure you've discussed it many times, but we've never discussed it, I don't think, on the air. When we were in the studio, when they were promoting Scott Ian and Sebastian, the supergroup show, and out of nowhere, Axl calls in, and 30 minutes later, here comes Axl Rose into your studio, and this is Axl Rose in 2006, maybe. He was not that he does a lot of interviews now, but he was not even in the public eye the way that he is now. It was completely out of nowhere. What a crazy night that was.
Yeah, that was certainly an enormous moment. And you were there. Scott was there. Sebastian Bach was there. And Don Jameson was there before that metal show. We were just friends.
Yeah.
And I remember he was hanging out. And yes, they were promoting Supergroup, which was that show with Jason Bonham, Evan Seinfeld, Ted Nugent. And it was really Sebastian that made that whole thing happen, because he was in that show Supergroup, and he, Skid Row or Sebastian, I think Skid Row had toured with Guns N' Roses back in the day.
Yes. Yeah.
And nobody had heard from Axl in like 30 years. And we were at the VH1 office, because I was working as a host at VH1 Classic, and I was doing something called the Supergroup Post Show. So when that show aired on VH1, they would do a wrap-up show on VH1 Classic, and that's what I hosted. So I had recorded a bunch of those episodes with those guys. We just got done shooting. Then they said, hey, can we promote it on your radio show? I said, yeah. So we were in the office at VH1 the day before, and I remember Sebastian saying to me, he's like, looking at his phone, he's like, dude, you're not going to believe this. I just got a text from Axl Rose. I'm like, he's like, he's texting me. Like, it was like hearing from a unicorn, It was like, what?
Right.
And he goes, I told him to come to your radio show tomorrow night. And I'm like, yeah, like that's going to happen. And then that show that you're talking about, we did it, and he started texting Sebastian again. And I said you were there. I was like, Sebastian, tell him where we're at. And then like an hour later, security tells us he's coming up. And it was just absolutely crazy. And that was also just before stations started streaming. And I don't really remember if there was like social media going on yet then. I don't really think there was any sort of real social media platforms. But I do know, even in the absence of all that, you could feel what was happening with us on the air that night was literally spreading around the world.
Yeah, I remember the whoever your station manager was, or whoever it was saying, keep him on as long as you can. There's no deadline. Like if your show's supposed to end at 2 and he wants to talk till 3 or whatever, just keep him going.
Yeah, and we did stay on at least till 3:30. I don't remember how long you were there, but did you go to the club with us?
The bungalow.
Yes, because I remember the funniest thing about that is we finish up. I cut the radio show at like 3:30, 4 in the morning. And of course, Axl's like, hey man, I'm going out. You guys want to come? And we're like, 4 o'clock. And he went to that trendy club in the Meatpacking district. And I remember when he told us, I was like, that's the kind of place Lindsay Lohan hangs out at. And as we're waiting to get in, she was standing behind us.
And we got to go ahead of her in line.
Because we had the password.
That's right. I do remember sitting next to Axl in that place. And he said, like, dude, I had such a great time tonight. It was so much fun. I'm really glad that I came. It was fun just to talk music with a bunch of guys. Like we were just talking. I just remember talking about Wasp and Great White and David Lee Roth. And there was no like Axl Rose. He just became like the rest of us, because I remember one of the questions we asked right away was, all right, Axl, great to have you here. Here's your first question: Judas Priest or Iron Maiden? And once we gave him that, the ice broke, and then we're just a bunch of nerds talking about heavy metal.
What was his answer to that? Do you remember?
He said Priest. He liked Priest better, but I think he said Killers was his favorite album out of all of them. Something along those lines. Like Maiden won the actual album, but Priest overall was his favorite.
The other thing I remember talking to him about that night was that he kept bringing up Nazareth to me.
Right.
The band Nazareth.
Right.
Because he said what a fan he was of Dan McCaffrey's voice. Dan McCaffrey passed away recently.
Yeah.
But if anybody ever listens to Nazareth and you listen to Axl, you will hear a lot of that influence on Axl's voice.
He's the one guy, there's a little Bon Scott in there too, but he's the one guy that you can really hear influenced Axl more than anybody's Dan McCaffrey for sure.
And when Dan passed away, you saw Axl post a lot about it.
Yes,
Because
yes,
it was really, he was an important guy to him.